college, took her Master of Arts in English Language Education, major in English for specific purpose, which she received honors award and outstanding thesis. And Doctor of Philosophy in Development Studies, specialized in internalization of higher education at the De La Salle University. She taught at Chiang Kai-shek College, De La Salle University, and at present, she is the Director for External Linkages at National University. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Dr. Glendora V. Chu.
In this age of new normal, online is not your only option. Because new normal means new learning modalities and new learning possibilities. Let Vibal make learning offline possible with Smart Class. Smart Class contains pre-made daily modules sequenced according to DepEd's budgeted teaching and learning calendar. Each module has a specific lesson duration and has day markers to guide parents and teachers in the asynchronous learning of learners. Inside the modules available in Smart Class, you will find the following elements. First, learning competencies are identified in the module openers. Kickstarters are available to test students' prior knowledge on the subject matter. This set of activities, found at the beginning of each lesson, may also serve as motivational activities. Parents of preschool to grade 2 students will also find notes to parents which contain tips and pointers on how they can guide their child while learning at home. Redefine your students' learning experience with the integration of augmented reality technology into images and illustrations available in Smart Class, making learning more interactive and exciting. At the end of each module, Long Quiz is also available to assess students' understanding of the lesson. Smart Class also features Wrap Up, a lesson ender activity that applies the constructivism theory of learning. In Wrap Up, students are expected to summarize the lesson on their own using a graphic organizer. You may also evaluate the quality of your students' learning by letting them practice their learning in real life through GRASP's formatted performance tasks. The content of Smart Class is designed for the entire academic year, and it is available for 5 major subjects. All aligned with DepEd's K-12 curriculum and covers the most essential learning competencies prescribed by DepEd. Secure your own copy of Smart Class before classes open. Contact marketing@vibalgroup.com to know more.
Good afternoon again, mga kavibal. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Our webinar will start in a while. Once again, let us welcome Dr. Glendora V. Chu.
Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen? All right. I hope you can. All right. So, this is a session again on online learning. And I'd like to submit to you today that it is one of the most hot, fiery, but seemingly refreshing topics that you could ever listen to. And I hope you guys would not just be able to learn, but even be entertained, and may something really nice happen to you after, taking time, or after being generous of giving your time, your few minutes with us. Thanks again to Vival, and I hope I am able to meet your expectations. All right. So, without further ado, because we can't really be sure of our connection, just like what happened moments ago, wherein I was offline because the power was cut for some reason. I don't know. For some reasons that we really don't know. But again, as I said, show must go on and life must go on, and there's nothing for us to be stressed about. We just have to keep our cool, and let's proceed. Okay, so first thing that we need to talk about is that, what do you really understand about online learning, and how do you think online learning is um, going to be part of our life, whether new normal or normal, whatever that is. But what do you usually do when you take a look at your smartphones, you work on your PCs, your tablets, your iPads, anything? So, any one of these items that I put here on my slides would be one of the purposes that you do each time you know, get into the net. Either you go surfing, but not using the actual surfing on an ocean's waves or something, but you do surf with an idea that you wanted to know something about. Surfing, browsing, however you want to distinguish between the two, it doesn't really matter as long as you have a purpose in, getting online. Some people also use the this material as a way of expressing whatever they have within them. So it's more on they doodle, they draw, or even they paint using digital apps that can make you create either 3D painting or flat painting that is abstract in nature. Or some people usually, get into YouTube. Like if you want to know about how to cook this, how to, build something like this, etc. Do it yourself kind of stuff. And I think for the most time in the past, a lot of people are into YouTube and learning a lot. For one, my children went out of the Philippines and then they lived in Japan. And, in Japan, you do everything on your own. So that's where they learn how to cook. Here in the Philippines, they're so um, cared for. Somebody has to cook for them, somebody has to laundry for them. But when they were out, they did everything for themselves. So, but where did they learn that from? By doing it practically themselves or by not having anyone to depend on. Some of you also, attend virtual classes. Some of you may just watch using your iPad, watch Netflix, watch movies in YouTube that are free, etc. Movies in the past. These are, entertainment in a way. But the question is, do they instill learning? What do you think? Well, I say yes. All right. So whatever you do, each time you get into the net or you get online, there always is a learning that comes with it. However, what kind of learning that is, that's another story to tell. But definitely, if you're asking if there's learning taking place, of course there is, because as long as people are interested into getting to know more about things or getting to know the details about some things, then naturally there's a learning involved in it, which is making your endeavor more enticing, more exciting, and more meaningful, more beneficial, because there always is an accompaniment of learning. So whether you are surfing and you're doing nothing, you have no direction, but the moment you turn on your computer, your desktop, your iPad, whatever gadget you have, there always is something for you to learn. Question is, are those the things that you really have to learn? So, but that's another talk that we can, really dwell on. What sort of stuff do you really do with the things that you learn from the net? Whether that learning is good or bad, it's another story to tell, as I said. Okay, so this slide simply wanted to, lay the foundation of this 40-minute or so talk that, you know, uh, whatever we do with the gadgets that we have, there always is learning. And w- it's called online because you need a connection, you need the provision, you need power to do it. So without power, without internet connection, perhaps there is no more learning in our time, in our age. Why? Because you can't go out. We can't really use, realia. We are restricted. Some people still are stuck inside their homes. So really, we are 100% at the moment dependent on the internet or our provision, our subscription, your digital connection. So it's really very important. I couldn't imagine, the NCR. I will not focus on the whole Philippines, just the NCR, having no power during this pandemic time. And we are all dependent on the internet. How? All right. So, but my talk has nothing to do with that because I am not here to give you negative views about life, but I'm here to make you feel more enthusiastic, make you feel more hopeful that whatever we hear today is something that we can really put into good use. That's my goal, right? So, you've been exposed with online learning, and there are so many YouTubers who are, uploading their own ideas about online learning. Some are really notable about it. They've been with e-learnings for so long. They were the pioneers, etc. But really, what's the difference between online learning and actual learning or physical learning? Is there a difference? Maybe only because we are stuck at home. But when in the context of learning, you can learn anywhere. We all can learn anywhere. We all can learn from anybody. Depends on our interest, depends on our enthusiasm, depends on how we want to look at things. But when you think about traditional learning wherein people go to school, it always comes with do's and don'ts. But this talk will not just simply focus on the do's and don'ts, because personally, as a teacher and as a mother, as a parent, I don't like to be ruled by, or neither I want to rule my kids nor my students by telling them the do's and don'ts. Because for me, I think the generation now has the capacity, the, the young people now have the capacity to think on their own, telling themselves what's supposed to be done and what's not supposed to be done. So I'm not here to tell you that, but I'm here to discuss what these do's and don'ts are, and what and how come we can, somehow transcend our understanding of do's and don'ts into something else that's more applicable to this time and age, to this current generation. But nonetheless, let us take a look at the do's and don'ts on, giving homework. For example, in the past, during the previous president's time, I think if my memory serves me right, during Noy Noy's time, President Aquino's time, there was a clamor that, students were not supposed to do their homeworks. Then we don't call it homeworks anymore. So there was a clamor that you don't have to give kids, assignments that they're going to be doing at home. There are do's and don'ts that come with it. One school would say that it's not good because their time at home is spent for relaxation or family time, etc. But, you know, homework or assignment is always something that, students can make a full use of by having a right mindset about it. Nonetheless, there are still people who say that it is not right, we should not do it, we should do it. But generally, the idea about giving homework is something that has been there. Even you are doing online learning or physical learning or actual learning, you bring yourselves to school. It doesn't really matter if it's an assignment or something that you need to do on your own. Really, what matters is that, as I said, if it's part of the learning process that you think should be done, then whether it's a do or don't, kids should do it, students should do it, all of us should do it. So here in my slide, I can show you, you can see it right now, that do focus on quality over quantity. I must admit that there are some educators, some teachers who are giving, homeworks, assignment, or even tasks for students that are really, not supposed to be given. I must admit that, because I've seen a lot who are just dependent on giving homeworks and not really teaching. No offense, but in fact, when I was, working as a coordinator, I'm sure of what I'm talking about. But point is, this is, this is a time of pandemic. There's fear pandemic, right? So if we are going to add up to the kids or to us ourselves, because this online learning stuff is not only for kids, it's even devoted, or it's even dedicated or appropriate for parents, for those who are staying at home, because Learning should take place even if you are quarantined or even if you are stuck at home working from home. We should never stop learning. So I must say, I must admit to all of you that online learning is for everyone. So understanding do's and don'ts may not be enough, but more so, there's something that we need to know about online learning. For example, the other image that I have here, online learning really speaks of education in general. This one, education. And when we educate ourselves, we are transformed, we are enlightened, we transcend whatever we know to something else, something higher, something more beneficial, something more helpful, something more meaningful. And it may be about leadership, it may be about training, commitment, could be about science. That's why in our time, in the past, there was this Lancet organization, health organization that, rejects a prophylactic solution for a virus or specifically COVID called hydrochloroquine, all right? Hydrochloroxyquine, all right? So you can Google that. I just Googled it. It has something to do with science. No, is being locked down part of science? This is online learning, guys. I did not attend any scientific conference abroad, but I'm learning a lot of things about science because I'm learning online. You see my point? So because I'm interested, I'm enthusiastic about, joining people, joining hands in hand with them, joining hands with them, telling the whole world that, there's more than, being fearful about COVID. There's more than that. It's not really COVID. I don't think COVID happened for all of us to fear. No, it has been allowed or it has happened because of a certain reason that there is a need to change whatever mindset we have right now in terms of understanding what the disease is scientifically or in terms of understanding public health in the context of governance. These are things that you can read online. There are a lot of materials. You just have to be sure about the source, because if you are going to source it from the dailies, from the newspapers, that might not be enough, because the newspapers that we are reading may be biased in one way or the other. It's part of learning as well, understanding why they are biased and why we are biased in our perspectives. That's online learning. Nobody teaches you right now about that. Why? Because you're stuck at home. And that's the main point of what I'm trying to share with all of you, that you know we are all in this together. If you are accessing internet, if you have a subscription online, if you are doing it the way a data does it, like you just access using your phone or whatever, and then you just listen, there always is learning. Am I clear on that? So right now, even before pandemic has come about, a lot of us are into online already. We access, we shop, and there are different ways of doing shopping now. It's not just you are given the the pictures of what you want to buy. Now you can take a look at the picture and then click on it and then pick it up, etc. And there will be more. Why? Because of online learning. So as we use this facility, as we use this tool, learning piles up. We learn from different angles of the situation. We learn how to solve issues that come across the way. That's why IT developers, social scientists, have to elevate as well themselves as well. They do not just have to focus on what they know. They have to be really listening to the public. What's going on? Even science does it. If in the past they halted the use of hydrochloroxyquine, now they're using it. They withheld their prior information about COVID. And some countries are, easing out their understanding of COVID because now they have prophylactic ways of, dealing with it. Those who were detected that are those who are detected that are positive in nature, They can ask their doctors. Of course, any medication need to be prescribed, and you have to be guided by your doctors. You cannot just, take any pill by yourselves. What I'm saying is, there are doctors who are willing to work hand in hand with people who think um they have COVID. What I'm saying is, we don't learn it from schools right now. We learn it from online, by reading, by feeding our minds and our hearts with positive thoughts instead of fearing, instead of being so anxious about what's going to happen next. Are you with me? So, here, when we do online learning, we become more intelligent, we become more skillful, because movements in our laptop may not be the same as movements in our iPad, or in our smartphones, or in our desktops. They have different interfaces. These are things that you only get to know when you use this facility more and more. And that's learning. So why do you have to go for the do's and don'ts of, learning? Well, in fact, you can just simply focus on the bright side of what you have to do in getting online learning. Are you with me? Okay. So, I usually make use of, some net materials, but just for sure that, I know where to get it from. Okay, for example, this one. It's an article from onlinestudies.com. So, do you think this onlinestudies.com, will provide, more credible information or data about online learning, since their company or this institution is named as onlinestudies.com? Do you think so? They have the name. They have to be true to their name. So what did they say? So if you access that, you can click that, or you can just visit the website. It's just a very short article, but you can, expound on it. You can learn about it, and you can let go of whatever fear you have. For example, what's really in an online learning? What do we have to keep in mind in an online learning? If it's paid, if it's free, if it's school based, or if it's work based, these are standards. For example, let voice be heard. So if you are in a discussion, if you are in a meeting, and one of the agenda is something that you know by heart, let your voice be heard. Take part. Okay, let go of distractions. For example, you are attending a meeting or a class. You're working from home, and then you have a friend asking you your suggestion about something, and then you can't help but look at it. That's a distraction because it has nothing to do with your current work at the current time. Let go of distraction. Let go of excuses, like just like what I said in the beginning. Okay, the show must go on. We cannot really, let us try to, come up with solutions if our net is low, if we cannot access, if there is no chance for us to go on online, etc. So those things are really challenging. I'm not saying they're not. They really are. In fact, can even affect, or they can even leave a negative impact. But what I'm saying is, for example, there's no problem like internet connection, there's no problem like power cut, but you simply just, don't like to show your face in during class hours because you are not used to, showing your video. But that's not right, because if your teacher demands, if your boss demands for a video with you, you should abide, because that's part of the agreement. Because I always believe that instead of do's and don'ts, we might as well agree on something. It's more intellectual, it's more understandable. Instead of you giving me, you don't do this, you do this. I don't like to raise a kid who is bound by understanding do's and don'ts, because it steals away from them their critical thinking, their critical understanding of things, and their decision making abilities. And I don't want that to happen. So let go of aloneness. Don't think that online learning is that you are alone, because you are not. As long as you are a human person, you are a human being. You are not a robot. You will always be part of something if only you like it. Because in an online community, there will always be there will always be opportunities for you to, mingle online with people. And I will tell you the truth that, I'm doing it only with people I want. That's the problem. If you want, nothing is impossible because it's online. You don't have to go out your way, dress up or something. You just have to put on a nice blouse like this, or, a coat that could only show your face. It's more than enough. And then you can mingle with people online, virtually. But still there is a interaction. There is an interaction. And you will never be alone. And let go of discouragement. Like for example, you're fixated because your internet connection is still, and then you are loading like that. There's always a way for you to solve that. Chat, or tell your boss that you have a limited connection. Do things email. Take a look at the other functions of your computer, screenshots, print screen. Maximize whatever you can maximize that you already have. The thing is, really, in the past, we have the computer, we have the iPad, but because we are going out, we are doing it, actual learning in school, bringing ourselves there day by day, we often, okay, disregard the presence of this basic, very basic um, tools that we already have. So, as I said, let go of the standards, and then always think that you are talking with people and they demand punctuality. Don't be late. I hate to be late. All right? That's why I apologize to Vival, going online late, because I'm trying to solve issues that are brought about by power interruptions. Imagine I'm ready as early as 1:30, but the power was cut at around 2:02. Just right in time for this talk. Just imagine that. It's good that I'm in school and there's a generator. Thank you, National University, for that. Okay, so please don't be late. Make it a habit to be conscious of your time, because other people value their time. Every second of their time is it's very important. So let us not wait them. Let us not make them wait. And then, of course, you have to prepare. You just cannot go online without any preparation. If you are a teacher, please, please, please don't just read your slides, because they can read. Students can read. If you are a parent and you are going to teach your kids something online, you are a homeschooler, um, you prepare for the video that you're going to share with your kid online. It's not something that you can just do on the spot. You have to prepare. If you are working from home, you just can't, attend meetings like that. That's why you are less participatory. Why? Because you did not prepare. That's why agenda is given at before the actual meeting, so that should there be any questions that pop up in your mind, you can always submit and you can always discuss it with the group. All right, when we talk about preparation, it comes with courtesy. We need to be respectful. We need to be friendly. There are uploads or there are sharings by a group or by your students or by anyone, even the kid that you are homeschooling, that may not be friendly at all. But because you embrace the idea of friendliness, you don't do it in an immature way. You don't address it in an immature way, but instead, be friendly, smile, even though you don't feel like, really joining. but because you have to. Because even if you don't feel like joining, always believe, always think that you can get something out of it. You with me? I will repeat. Even if you don't feel like joining, even if you don't feel like going online, always remember that there will always be something I'll get from it. I just have to open my eyes and open my ears and see and look around. There is always something you can learn from. Believe me. So it comes with attitude. Whether online learning or actual learning, if there's no attitude that comes with it, if you don't have a heart for it, then that's gonna be good, because it may be a waste of time. But if you are interested, even if you don't feel like, even if you don't think you can learn and get something out of it, you will always get something out of it. A change of mindset, a change, you become mature. And it's a nature, it's being developed. It's not something that it's not natural. That's what I mean. It's not something that it's already there. It's something that you have to you develop, you have to hone. And it's learning by itself. Okay? You have to prepare your space like this, all right? Because your space also matters with your audience. If your space, if you are filled with a lot of stuff here, they may cause distractions. Even if you don't feel like being distracted because of the space that's not clear, it can create distraction. And take a look at your tech, your connection, your tools, whatever you're using. This is why there's always something like you call practice. You practice it with the people you are going to meet if it's something fresh. I believe during the first few months of pandemic, it was really terrible for me to go online like this because I had no computer then. I only am dependent on my iPad. And honestly speaking, iPad may sound good and look good, but it has really limitations when it comes to talk like this. So, but did it stop me? No. You can ask Bival. As early as April, we are already in modes like this because we want to share, we want to help. That there's no such thing as excuses. There's only such thing as you can do it. We can do it. Okay? So that's part of flexibility. You can't be stopped by the limitations. You can't be hindered by what you don't have. No, because the more limitations that you have, the higher possibility that you can solve it. I don't know how you pick it up, but really, if you don't have challenges, if you don't have limitations, there's nothing for you to think about, right? Think about it and tell me if I'm right or wrong. Or perhaps check it out among yourselves. All right, so I made use of another, posting by Stanford Education. Stanford is one of, I can say, pioneering university that, offers online education, open university, something like that. When they were trying to come up with, um, this particular post has something to do with the survey they conducted among their online teachers. All right. So you can check it yourselves. I gave you the link. Just click it if you are interested. It's easy to read. These are the things that the instructors or teachers say about this question. How should students go about establishing a good instructor student relationship with you? Because sometimes online learning, a lot of people believe that in online learning, relationship may not be possible, like building a good rapport with your students. But I dare say no, because you can always build relationship with people even if you are just doing it virtually. It's your sincerity that comes with it. It's not the gadget, it's not the tool. It's how sincere you want to reach out. Even though your students or the people you talk with are foreigners, even though there's language barrier, there's always a way if you are sincere. So these are the things that the instructor mentioned. Instructors may be educators, may be specialists, but they are instructors in an online setup. It means to say that they may not really they may not have taken the units for teaching, but they may have been an expert in a certain field like IT, engineering, and then they have free time to teach online. So they are being brought to the team. So that's how Stanford does it, no? So that's why their open university is getting more and more popular from different regions of the global world. So what was this question about? Establishing. How can you establish a good relationship with your students if you are a teacher? Or how can you establish a relationship if you are a learner to your teacher? Simple. They said, most of them said, read the syllabus. So in our case here at NU, we usually share with them, the entire content of the semester or the term. So if you were the student, I always tell my student, okay, take a look. You are already given the heads up. It's up to you to read in advance or what. So it's an agreement. So you're giving them a way to decide whether they will do it or not. All right. Understand the core software. Which software are we going to use? Are we using Zoom? Are we using Ding Ding? Are we using Canva? Are we using Tencent? So many LMS, so many learning management systems. Or perhaps you're using your school learning management system. How dependable your school LMS? With Vival, I'm sure they have a very dependable system being used. Even though people are working at home from their group, they still can access. So what are you using for Vival? I think they're using Smart HR, etc. So there are many ways by which we can, really check if that particular software, of that particular mechanism is gonna work. Make sure you have your textbook. These are, the instructors telling the students, okay? But in our time, Bival specifically mentions a while ago, I was watching their feed. Okay, they have their homeschool, whatever. All right, so you can ask them. It comes with, I think, with the K to 12 um, program of Dep Ed. So they must have textbook. What I'm saying is that there is always a way. So we are not left empty-handed, or we are not left starting from scratch. No. And also, make sure your email is working, because your teacher can always communicate, or you as a student can always communicate with your teacher, or if you are an employee working from home, you can always communicate, send to your boss whatever that is you want him to understand. Simple, basic. And show this one an interest. Show an interest in the course and in your fellow students, or show interest to your instructor, right? Because if there is no interest you are showing to people you are with virtually, all the more there's nothing gonna be accomplished. There's gonna be no relationship because there's no interest. So again, whether it's an online thing, whether it's a do or don't, it all starts from the person. If the person is not interested, we cannot do anything about it. If the person is interested, wow, we can do so much. But there's this thing, courteous. Be courteous. I mentioned that in the previous slide, right? Here, friendliness, courtesy, right? It's very important that we have to be courteous. For example, somebody's talking and then you are on video and then you are looking at something else. That's not courtesy. That's rude. So if you don't like to show that you are doing something, pause your video so they won't see anything, just your picture, and then go back right away. But don't go back after 2 hours. That's funny. It's still not courtesy. So bear with your, because you want to learn, you have to bear in the next 40 minutes with me. Something like that. Okay? So let us always keep that in mind. This does not come from me. This came from different instructors who have been into online learning or e-learning since long time ago. Therefore, all right. So let me share with you an agreement. It's not really do's and don'ts. It's more of an agreement. For example, responsibility. In my class, each student is responsible. They have to come up with their own set of tasks. Means to say that for a certain week, that week will not pass without them doing anything for themselves, not for me. Because if they don't do that, then I don't see anything that has been learned in terms of assessing them. So if they do that, I have something to check. If they don't, that's the only thing I can do to, really guide them. But without them submitting any tasks in a certain week or in a certain duration for a certain task. And if they don't do it, then they are not following the agreement we made from the very beginning. So it has something to do with responsibility. How responsible you or students are in entering that agreement. So I don't really buy do's and don'ts. I go for agreement. If you agree that you are going to finish the next 13 weeks together and become friends, then be responsible. Do your tasks. And you have an obligation because if it's only a responsibility, you don't do it, and you are not obligated. You may do it, but you don't submit it because you are not obliged. But if there is an obligation that comes with it, you need to have an output. So when you do your task, you have to have an output. That's something more like it. That's something more expressive. That's something more um, figuring out if you really learn. Because there's a proof, there's an evidence, there's an output that you did it yourself, right? And most importantly, there are outcomes. What are these outcomes? You learn respect. You learn to trust. For example, I am a teacher. I learn to trust my students 100%. Why? Because I don't really know when I'm doing the lecture if they are seated and listening to me. Because I'm doing my lecture right now. I'm just looking at my small video right on top of my screen. And the rest is what? This the slides that I'm sharing with you. There's nothing else. So if I don't trust them, what do you think will happen? So I'm talking to myself. So there has to be trust. And that's an outcome. No, you are teaching people how to trust. And now, in our time and age, it's hard for people to trust. But if we do an online setup wherein trust is at the core as an outcome, what do you say about it? It's nice, right? And you will feel certain sense of fulfillment. Why? Because, as I said, you are just in a box. But if you are not able to accomplish, seeing your students to become responsible, they are obliged to submit on time, and then they do not do it, you don't feel fulfillment. But when they do it and you are surprised that, after 1.5 hours, they submit something and you have something to check, you have something to go over, that's fulfilling. That's something for you to say, I like my class, even if it's done online. Right? So please don't forget, it's my class, all right? It's Glenn's online class. But I'm sharing it with you because even though you are just homeschooling, even though you are working from home, if you will follow, this agreement that I share with my students, with people I work with, we have to be responsible and obligated. You have to understand the context of obligation because it's not enough that you are responsible. You have to be obliged as well. You are obligated to finish certain stuff at a certain time. You may be responsible, but forgetting about submitting it is another story, right? That's why I always put them together. And of course, how can people work well with you if you don't trust them? If you don't respect them, if you shout at them, if you tell them that you are nothing good, you are worth nothing. Do you think they will do something for you? I don't think so. So online learning also follows this, and a lot of people say, you can read a lot of literature, they say that online learning is very limited, we cannot teach these things to the students. I say not. That's not true. Because if you will be limited by the fear pandemic right now, then what's going to happen to this generation, to this very much affected grade level? Nothing, right? We don't want to waste our time. So I always say they are learning something. Even if they are stuck in the box, looking at the box from morning until afternoon, they are learning something. They are learning these things. And this is life changing if they will only really, really, really be serious about it. That's why, for me, it's more of an agreement. It has to be set earlier on in the relationship. If you are a homeschooler, if you are a parent, you want that, if you work with Vival, then take a look. There has to be an agreement. And please follow this. Okay? All right. I will show you, a little something about my class. All right. I will show it now. Okay. Can you see it? I think I should. All right. Okay. So take a look at my class. We are using, okay, Teams. All right. I'm um, scrolling it up for all of you. You see, I have here color coded, okay, color coded announcement box. Okay, what does that have to do with the class? This is where I set, okay, for example, this one, meeting at 3 p.m. Points discussed, okay? And then there are 34 replies. So I already made an agreement with the class that, you know, for us to really make the most out of this time, you have to cooperate with me. I will teach you the best way I can, but you have to cooperate. Because without your cooperation, this online class is a waste. And I don't like to waste time. Neither do you, right? So if each time I load, okay, news info like that, okay, students also can do uploading. All right? That means to say I can check, I'm learning I realize that I can trust them because they are doing exactly what our agreement was about. I get to receive replies like that. You see? Okay, I uploaded this particular, all right, reference, okay? COVID-19 regional assessment. So I'm showing them something that for them to learn more about. So I am not just teaching them, I'm making them teach themselves, which is, I think, one of the best gifts of fear of this pandemic fear, or a pandemic that is fear, not disease at all. Okay, so you can take a look. You can really see for yourselves if kids are learning more from it. Okay, so that's just one. All right, so if I will scroll this further, you get to see, color coded like this, NU core values in the lens of contemporary world. By the way, I'm teaching contemporary world, which is a very interesting course about what's going on. Students are often detached with what's going on outside and what's going on inside. With the contemporary world as a course, they become attached. They become to situate themselves as a future accountant, as a future economist, as a future doctor, as a future nurse. How do these courses make sense to them in the context of, let's say, public health, in the context of finance and economics, etc., etc. In the context of infrastructure, if you are an engineering student, an architecture student, etc. So contemporary world is making sense with them. Or contemporary world does not just become a course, but it becomes part of who they are as a person, as a Filipino, and as a global citizen. Right? So this is my class. Everything is done online, especially now that PLDT is doing some repairs. We don't meet online like this, but we conduct asynchronous. Asynchronous is we just more on text and uploads, and then we do video class as well, like this. I'm teaching and then they're participating. All they have to do is when they want to raise their hand is to, there's an icon for the raising hand, and then they will turn on their audio, they will participate. So topics and tasks. So I give them deadlines. If you see that, deadline, all right? Submission. So there is an obligation. They are not just responsible to do it, they are obliged to submit it on time. And then I give them references. It's for them to master, it's for them to explore. Because I don't have the monopoly of intelligence, neither I do have the monopoly of information. I may read it this way, but they may read it in another way. And that's for me real learning. Okay? So there's more into this. Okay, for example, I want to meet them virtually. Then all they have to do is to click on that button at 3 p.m. and we can all see each other. So I usually give them time to speak about themselves, etc. And I usually give them time to present whatever they grasp from, let's say, a 3 week lecture sessions. And then they will come up with a synthesis about it, etc. So it's a matter of really maximizing what you have in your hand. It's not about what you don't have. It's about what you have. So I even teach them as part of an assessment, reading with a purpose, if you see that. Okay? I just give them, I will not do the summary for them. They will have to do it themselves. They will have to understand what they're into because they're already college students. They are university students. They've done their grades 11 and 12. They must know how. So now from there, I can check if they really know how. If they don't, then I will have to reteach. So, this particular strategy also helps me as a teacher. It's an online learning, right? I don't think online learning is only for learners. It's for everyone, and so on and forth. So, should we have more time, I am so willing to, really discuss this further with you. Maybe we can have, part two of this. Should we have an opportunity? I'm very much willing. So, it's interesting, right? Okay, so with that note, I think I have to go back to my PowerPoint presentation. Stop share, and then I'll share again. All right. So see, this one alone is something new to us, and we learn it because there was pandemic. So that was a peep in my class. It's a learning platform we're using. It's Microsoft Teams. It's used for both synchronous and asynchronous session. So that's what my class is all about. Allow me to end this afternoon session with this. Think out of the box and create a learning experience where the learner can, okay, do things on their own. It's by Rosalie Valdez. Okay, there's another one. When it comes to e-learning, content means everything. All right. So, you know, because that's all you have, content. If there's no content, if somebody just reads the slides like that, there's nothing in it. Imagine me just reading the slides for you. It's boring, right? You might as well leave right away. Forget about YouTube. Because we have to be different. Why? Because it's limited. So we need to, really imagine and be innovative, creative in presenting something, using slides that really are enticing, like, the color of the slide you won't let you fall asleep, etc. And as I end, okay, online learning is here to stay. Whether we're back to normal or we stay like this, it's here to stay. And there's nothing wrong doing things online. And getting internet connection as poor as what we are having right now, still, we will not be stuck. We will not be stuck in this particular situation. There will always be an improvement. That's what we have to believe. Because online learning is here to stay. And I would like to submit to you before I end that you will learn a lot in online because you have your own time and space. All right? You just have to be responsible and oblige yourself to get into submissions or tasks that you can do for yourself. For example, you are learning at home. You have to write in your notebook or in your journal things that you learn. If you are not working for any company, what I'm saying is that make every second count. There's nothing wrong with online learning and it's here to stay. I'm not saying that school is gone, like going to school is gone. No, we still need school. People still need schools, physical schools. You still have to go out because it's very essential that people go out. But what I'm saying is within the premise of what we have right now, we're still locked down, we're still GCQ. What do you do at home? Right? Sub, bored, get sick? No. Learn. Educate yourselves. Okay? Do's and don'ts. This is my stand, just my personal stand. Do's and don'ts may no longer fit this time and age. We should, all agree to create a new atmosphere. That is exceptional learning. Meaning to say, exceptional means there's no second wasted. There's no milliseconds wasted. Every second count. That's exceptional. And there's nothing wasted. Remember, we only have one life to live. So teaching in the internet age means we must teach tomorrow's skills today. And that's gonna be the future wherein we need to teach today. Because in the future, it's really highly information age. Okay? So thank you everyone, and I think we have Q&A.
Thank you very much, Doc. Let us proceed to the question and answer portion. Our first question is from Lilia Rosales. As a parent, how can we encourage learners who are not motivated to attend their online class due to technical problems which hinder their interest to attend the class?
That's a nice question, madam. All right, first off, if you are given a heads up of what the kids would, have to learn that week or that term, I think you need to do your part. You can do advanced readings about it if you were given a guideline or a module. Come up with something. If you have a home-based encyclopedia, if you have a data you can access, you just have to pay 50 pesos for Globe without, really. What I'm saying is prepare yourselves first if there is a problem in interconnection. Because if they cannot access, they will surely lose their interest. So, what do parents have to do? Since you have prepared for that moment wherein connection is very hard, you actually make your kids attend your own class. All right? How? You are not the teacher. You don't know anything. For example, it's mathematics. For sure, yes, we don't because we don't know. We don't know how school does it, right? But what I'm saying is you can get busy with some other things, not wasting that online session time. For example, you are very good not in math, but you are very good in science. Why not make use of that moment wherein instead of them being depressed or stressed by low connection moments, why not make that time to teach your expertise? I hope I'm making sense because I will not dwell on, you know, inability to access online session. I will not dwell on that because I cannot solve it. There's no internet. What can I do? There's no power. What can I do? At least I have paper and pencil at home. I can ask him to draw that has something to do with the lesson that I was given ahead of time. What I'm saying is make the most out of the opportunity so that even though it's negative in a way, it can turn into something positive. And that's what, in the first place, that's what parents should do. We know our kids more than anyone, more than how teachers know them. We know our kids better. And we know their weaknesses, we know their strengths. So why not dwell on their weaknesses and make it a strength? Use that moment. You can buzz me. I will share some few things with you. regarding that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc. Our next question is from Jean L. Aquino. Can students who are lagging in their learning be helped in some specific way at present or post COVID 19? Is there any effective way to reduce the learning gap? Thank you.
There are so many ways to reduce the learning gap. Thank you for asking that question. As I said, all you have to do is to be interested. All you have to do is to be enthusiastic. If you know your kids, if you know your students, they are going through that learning gap, find a way to be part of the solution. First solution, I already mentioned in my presentation. You can Google. You can join a group. That's number two. There are groups, for example, kids are slow. Slow learners. Slow learners na nga, wala pang internet, wala pang libro. Paano yun, di ba? Ang laking problema nun. But do you know that, teachers from the remote provinces can do something about it? They can go out in the backyard and see something for themselves. They can use realia. Then they can make a difference. Basic point. Your interest, your enthusiasm is something that's contagious. As adults, that is expected of us. And that learning gap that we want to, become, to solve, and we want to become part of that solution, is something we can really, address if we join hands together. Because thinking by yourselves may not really, thinking by yourself may not really help. That's why we need an an organization. We have to be part of a certain organization that will really help us, um, think with the group, or help really solve this particular issue on learning gap. And there are so many available information you can Google. You can also visit Google Scholar. There are studies conducted about learning gaps. Just read, pick the ones that interest you the most, and learn from it. I hope I answer your questions, because I know it may be a general way of answering your question, but really, if we want to, make it more specific, maybe we can come up with a group. You can ask Vival to form that, and then let's make that work. And I'm very willing to take part in helping solve that learning gap. But as I said, from the bottom of my heart, learning gaps can be solved if adults, teachers, homeschoolers, education providers will really be taking time to sit down and to solve this issue. But without installation of that group yet, would that mean that we will not ask, or we will not think of a possible solution? No. You can always read, you can always Google, take a look at Google Scholar, how to handle learning gaps in an actual situation. Now you just have to transcend that to the virtual situation. I'm sure 100% you can come up with a possible mechanisms or solutions to address that. Buzz me.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Ferdinand Kiatchon. How to implement discipline to children who prefer to spend time with their friends rather than to study?
Okay. Maybe are we referring to the children who are supposed to stay home, quarantined, or are we referring to children really who are attending actual school? Well, whatever your whatever it is referring to, I'd like to say that discipline has always been an issue, not just in school, but way before they got out of the house. So the discipline issue is not just our problem in school, but it's a problem that, parents would have rather solve before they send them out. But Nonetheless, as teachers or as educators, we have to address discipline, right? You know, I always say this to everyone, my students, my friends, my relatives. The very first thing that you have to, teach your children or your students in school is habit. Because developing habits, good habits, develop discipline. Example of good habits: when it's your first time to meet your students, either virtually or actually. Good habits is, it's our session. I will only be with you in the next 30 minutes. Can you not spare that moment with me? So just stay here. I will be calling each one of you after my lecture. That's good habit. You're teaching them, be disciplined in the next 30 minutes. Be respectful. When somebody speaks, please listen. When I ask you to speak, please do so. It has to be set earlier on. You don't address discipline in the middle part of the discussion. You address discipline, good habits from the very beginning. It has to be your agreement with your students. It has to be your agreement with your child. It has to be your agreement with anyone else you are entering into certain kind of, discussion, certain kind of talk, certain kind of deal, etc. It has to be put in place earlier on, meaning from the beginning. If it's not put in place, then there is no agreement, there is no understanding. What happens is that anything goes, which hurts discipline, which is not inviting of good habits. That's why always include from the very first few meetings with your children, with your students, an agreement. They have to agree with you. That's their obligation. That's their responsibility. Because you are teaching them how to trust, you are teaching them respect. Then they have to agree. Buzz me. I may not be able to, explain further because of time limitation, but I'm always available for those who are interested to know more about it.
Thank you very much, Doc. Our next question is from Niza Ante. Doc Glendora, can you conclude that relationship virtually is the same as relationship in face-to-face learning? Thank you po.
Mm. When I say conclude, that means to say that's all I'd like to people I'd like people to believe right now. Maybe I don't really have to have that conclusion right now, but in our context, right? What is our context now? Most of us are staying home. Most of the kids are staying home. So the kind of relationship you can build with them, either you are doing it virtually or actually, is almost the same. It has to be the same because if you will not look at it that way, then it becomes a hardship. I'd rather focus on it as a challenge than a hardship. What's the difference between a challenge and a hardship? A hardship may be looked at as a challenge, but very dependent on the attitude of the looker, of the one who sees it. But when it's a challenge, it's more positive and it's more something that you will act upon on. So building relationship can also happen because in my class right now, I hardly know those people. I just met them online. But right now on our second month, I'm not joking and I'm very sincere. Right on our second month, I think we are now in a very good relationship because some even, share problems with me. But we just met online. What I'm saying is there's maybe not a difference at all right now because it's a limitation as well. We cannot really meet physically. But of course, if we are meeting physically, it's far better. But with the limitations that we have right now, I'd like to say, call it a conclusion if you may. It's the same. Depends on your sincerity if you really are 100% sure that I'm concerned about this kid. I want him to learn, I want him to mature, etc. Because you will find ways by which you can make him one. Okay.
Thank you very much, Doc. That's all the questions we have for now. Any last
Wow.
reminders to our viewers for today po?
Should they find this session, should it spark an interest in them to know more about this session, they can always ask you to, come up with a part two. Then they can request you. We can talk about it. We can even form a group, because if you notice, whatever is available online, it's just, telling you, stuff like that. But we can pull our resources together. Like if you are involved in homeschool and you see all these limitations, you can brought that to the fore, and then probably another teacher who's part of the fore, or who's watching the video or the YouTube session right now, can suggest, and then we can have a pool of possible solutions to our issues, because there's nothing like that yet. Based on what's going on, we can start it, and I enjoin you, should you want to start it, buzz me, I'll participate. God bless you all and enjoy the rest of the week, and please stay fit and healthy. God bless you.
Thank you very much. There we have it. In behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this very eye-opening and insightful learning session. It is an honor to have you with us today, Doc.
Love, love.
And to all our Kavibao viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Don't forget to register to get your e-certificate of participation. We also encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Vibal Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat.